Before I tell you this story, let me ask you something. Have you ever had a job that changed your life in a way you never saw coming? Stay with me until the end because this story takes a turn no one could predict. And before we begin, subscribe to the channel, write your profession in the comments, and tell us if you've ever experienced something strange or unexpected at work. I was 27 when I took the job. In my city, everyone knew the name of the businessman who owned the large estate on the hill. He was over 80 years old, extremely wealthy, and rarely seen in public. People spoke about him in quiet tones, as if he were more legend than man. When I saw the job listing for a cleaner at his property, I didn't hesitate. I had loans, unpaid bills, and constant anxiety about money. Pride wasn't something I could afford. The work itself was simple. I was hired through his staff, not by him directly. My duties were clear. Keep the house clean, organized, and comfortable. No personal interaction required. That suited me just fine. I wasn't looking for conversation, only stability. The house was enormous, but calm. Thick carpets softened every step. Tall windows let in gentle light. Everything smelled of polish and old wood. I worked alone most days, and to make the hours pass faster, I listened to music through my headphones. Sometimes, without thinking, I would move along with the rhythm, a small step here, a turn there. Nothing planned, just a way to feel human while doing routine work. I never imagined anyone noticed. Weeks passed. My routine stayed the same. Arrive in the morning, clean room by room, listen to music, leave before evening. I never saw the owner. If I needed supplies or instructions, I spoke to his assistants. It felt safe, predictable. Then, one morning, everything changed. When I arrived, one of the staff members asked me to wait. That alone made my stomach tighten. I stood near the entry hall, holding my bag, replaying every possible mistake in my head. Had I broken something? Missed a room? Been too slow? After a few minutes, a door opened, and I was told the owner wanted to speak with me. My heart started racing. I had never spoken to him before, not once. As I walked down the long hallway, my thoughts spiraled. I imagined losing the job. I imagined the bills waiting at home, the phone calls from banks, the pressure that never seemed to ease. He was sitting in a large chair near the window. He looked older than I expected. Fragile but alert. His voice was calm, controlled, and polite. He told me he had a proposal. I froze. A proposal could mean anything, and none of the possibilities felt good. I nodded, afraid to interrupt. He explained that the house had cameras for security. That was normal, he said. But then he added something unexpected. He had noticed that I often listened to music while I worked, that I moved to it, that I danced. My face grew hot. I felt exposed, embarrassed, unsure if I had done something wrong. Then he surprised me again. He said he loved dance, always had, that music and movement brought him joy, and that at his age, time felt very limited. He said he didn't want much, just that once a week I would dance for him. Nothing else, no audience, no recording, just a private moment of art and movement. In return, he would pay triple my normal rate. I didn't answer right away. My mind was loud with fear and confusion. I asked if I could think about it. He agreed. I left that day shaken, unsure if I should ever return. But the numbers in my head were louder than my doubts, and a few days later, I made a decision that would change everything. I barely slept the night after he made the offer. I turned from side to side, replaying every word, every detail. I tried to imagine what agreeing would mean. I also tried to imagine saying no. The truth was uncomfortable. I needed the money. I was tired of surviving instead of living. By the next morning, I knew I had to be honest with myself. He hadn't crossed any lines. His request, while unusual, was clear and respectful, and he had given me space to decide. When I returned to work, I asked one of the staff members to tell him I agreed. That first dance felt heavier than any cleaning shift I had ever worked. I chose simple music, slow, familiar. My hands trembled at first. He sat quietly, watching, not speaking, not interrupting. I focused on the rhythm, on breathing, on remembering how music made me feel when no one was watching. When it ended, he thanked me. That was all. No comments, no instructions, just thanks. The payment came later that day, exactly as promised. From that point on, once a week, I danced. Always in the same room, always at the same time. The rest of my job stayed the same. Clean, organize, leave. Something unexpected happened over time. The fear faded. The dancing stopped feeling like a task and started feeling like a gift. Not just for him, but for me. It reminded me of who I was before stress took over my life. Sometimes he would talk afterward, about music he loved when he was young, about places he had traveled, about mistakes he had made. He never asked questions about my personal life. He never pushed boundaries. I noticed how tired he looked as weeks passed. His voice grew softer, his movements slower, but his eyes still lit up when the music began. One afternoon, as I was leaving, he said something that stayed with me. He said that people often forget that older age doesn't erase emotion, that joy doesn't expire. I didn't know what to say. Then, one week, I arrived and the house felt different, quieter. Staff members spoke in hushed voices. I asked what was wrong. That's when they told me. He had passed away during the night. I stood there, unable to process the words. Shock wrapped around me like fog. I hadn't expected it, even though I knew his time was limited. The idea that I would never hear that calm voice again felt unreal. I went home early that day, sitting in silence, thinking about how fragile life really is. But that wasn't the end. A few days later, I received a phone call that would leave me even more stunned. The call came from a legal office. At first, I assumed it was a mistake. They asked for me by name and told me I was requested to attend the reading of a will. I laughed. I actually laughed. I told them they had the wrong person. They didn't. They explained that I had been specifically named. I hung up the phone and stared at the wall for a long time. My hands were cold. My thoughts made no sense. Why would I be involved in something like that? I wasn't family. I wasn't even a friend. I was an employee. When the day came, I sat in a quiet room with people who clearly did not expect to see me there. Relatives, distant and close, all dressed in dark colors. I felt out of place, small, and nervous. The lawyer began reading. Names were called, assets distributed, properties, accounts, collections. Then my name. The room shifted. I felt every eye turn toward me. He had left me an apartment in the city, one of his cars from a private collection, and $1 million. I stopped breathing for a moment. My ears rang. I waited for someone to correct the mistake, but no one did. The lawyer confirmed it. Everything was legal. Everything was intentional. Some faces showed anger, others confusion. I didn't blame them. I barely understood it myself. Later, the lawyer explained that he had made changes to his will months earlier. He had written a letter explaining his decision. He believed that joy should be rewarded, that kindness should be remembered, that life should be lived fully, even at the end. I walked out of that office in a daze. The city looked different, louder, sharper, unreal. Money didn't fix everything overnight, but it gave me something I hadn't had in years. Room to breathe. I paid my debts, I moved into the apartment, I started thinking about the future instead of just the next bill. But the most important thing he left me wasn't listed in the will. It was a lesson. In the weeks that followed, I thought about him often. About how close I came to saying no out of fear. About how easy it is to judge situations without understanding them. People asked questions. Some assumed things. I learned quickly who to keep at a distance. I also learned that generosity doesn't always look the way we expect. Sometimes it comes quietly, through small moments, through music in an empty room. I started volunteering at a local community center. I supported arts programs, dance classes for adults who thought it was too late to start, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, rediscovering movement. Every time I saw someone smile because of music, I thought of him. I kept one of his letters. In it, he wrote that watching me dance reminded him that beauty exists in ordinary places, that life is not measured only by success, but by moments of connection. So, what's the conclusion of this story? Sometimes the job you take just to survive becomes the moment that changes your direction. Sometimes kindness appears in unexpected forms. And sometimes listening to your fear costs more than trusting your instinct. If there's one thing I learned, it's this: don't underestimate the impact you have on others, even when you're just doing your job. Thank you for listening. If this story made you think, subscribe to the channel. Write your profession in the comments and tell us if you've ever had a strange or unforgettable experience at work. Your story might be the next one that needs to be told.